Caseverse is your space to explore real-world business events, decode disruptions, and uncover timeless management insights. Our mission: build critical thinking, scenario analysis, strategic perspective, and sound decision-making, the foundations of leadership excellence. Each video presents a case from current business reality, distilled into clear narratives and linked to proven management frameworks. Whether you are a student, teacher, manager, entrepreneur, or thought leader, the Caseverse helps you analyze, reflect, and stay ahead with actionable insights. Here, business is not just studied, it's experienced, questioned, and reimagined. Join our community where every case holds a verse, and every verse shapes the future of business. Courses for discussion. The case is suitable for use in the subjects of operations management, enterprise risk management, crisis management, ethics, and corporate governance. Target audience. The case has been designed for audience encompassing MBA students, management scholars, retail strategy enthusiasts, entrepreneurs, business leaders, strategic thinkers, teachers, and researchers in business management. Case domains. This case encompasses the domains of marketing management, strategy, retail marketing, risk, ethics, governance. Theoretical lens framework applied. This case leverages BCG Growth Share Matrix Resource-Based View, RBV. The said frameworks can be used to analyze and interpret the scenario. By working through this case, participants will be able to understand how portfolio restructuring can be guided by portfolio analysis frameworks like the Growth Share Matrix. Analyze how internal resources and capabilities shape strategic moves using the resource-based view. Explore the challenges of scaling in the FMCG industry within an emerging market context. Critically evaluate the balance between distribution scale, brand equity, and innovation in consumer goods. For a free copy of teaching note for this case, mail at thecaseverse1@gmail.com. In the evolving landscape of India's consumer goods market, Reliance Industries Limited, RIL, has consistently demonstrated a remarkable ability to sense market opportunities, build scale, and reposition its assets for sustained growth. A recent strategic move saw Reliance Retail Ventures Limited, RRVL, transferring most of its fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG, brands into Reliance Consumer Products Limited, RCPL. This restructuring was more than just an internal reshuffling of brands. It reflected a carefully considered approach to market positioning, resource optimization, and long-term capability building. This case explores the rationale behind the decision, the market environment influencing it, and the potential outcomes for both the group and the broader FMCG ecosystem in India. The market context. India's FMCG sector is among the largest in the world, fueled by rising disposable incomes, urbanization, and changing consumer preferences. Yet, the sector has also witnessed fierce competition. Established incumbents like Hindustan Unilever, ITC, Nestle, and Dabur command significant loyalty and distribution depth, while newer entrants such as Patanjali and D2C startups have disrupted consumer behavior with differentiated propositions. Within this dynamic landscape, Reliance Retail initially experimented by introducing multiple FMCG offerings under its umbrella. It launched products in packaged foods, beverages, household staples, and personal care. However, the early years were marked by uneven brand performance, with some gaining traction and others struggling to find a foothold. Reliance recognized that sustaining multiple brands within its sprawling retail division risked diluting focus and limiting the ability to aggressively scale winners. The transfer also allows Reliance to compete head-on with entrenched FMCG giants like Hindustan Unilever, ITC, and Nestle, but with a sharper focus and dedicated management bandwidth. RCPL can devote itself entirely to product development, marketing, and brand building, while Reliance Retail continues to focus on strengthening its distribution and retail network. The alignment is strategic. RCPL benefits from the assured distribution muscle of Reliance Retail, while at the same time being free to expand through general trade, modern trade, and e-commerce channels beyond Reliance's own stores. This hybrid model gives it a competitive edge in scaling faster than competitors that rely only on traditional retail and distributor-led models. Another rationale lies in financial engineering and value creation. Global markets tend to assign higher valuation multiples to pure-play FMCG businesses compared to retail businesses because of their stable cash flows and brand equity-led growth. By housing its FMCG operations under RCPL, Reliance can attract dedicated investor interest, raise capital more effectively, and potentially list the entity separately in the future. This mirrors the playbook of global conglomerates that spin off high-growth divisions to maximize shareholder value. The creation of RCPL also provides greater transparency in financial reporting, enabling investors and analysts to assess the FMCG business independently rather than viewing it as a small component of Reliance Retail's vast operations. At a strategic level, the move is also about building long-term competitive resilience. Reliance has articulated its ambition of being a dominant player in the consumer products space, introducing brands such as Independence in staples, dairy, and packaged foods, and acquiring heritage labels like Campa Cola. With RCPL as the growth vehicle, Reliance can continue to pursue aggressive acquisitions, partnerships, and category expansions, free from the constraints of being a subdivision of the retail business. This structural clarity positions Reliance not just as a retailer with private labels, but as a consumer goods powerhouse in its own right, capable of reshaping India's FMCG landscape. The portfolio landscape Reliance Consumer Products Limited, RCPL, is being positioned as a multi-category FMCG challenger with a growing and diverse portfolio that spans food, beverages, staples, and household products. Unlike traditional private labels tied exclusively to Reliance Retail's outlets, RCPL's brands are being developed and marketed as standalone consumer products with the ambition of achieving pan-India reach. One of the most visible moves in this direction has been the revival of Campa Cola, an iconic Indian soft drink brand acquired in 2022. By bringing back Campa Cola with new formulations and expanded flavors, Reliance signaled its intent to leverage nostalgia-driven consumer connect while simultaneously competing with Coca-Cola and Pepsi in one of the most fiercely contested categories. In the foods and staples segment, Reliance has rolled out the Independence brand, covering categories such as packaged atta, rice, pulses, edible oils, and dairy products. The positioning of Independence is particularly significant given the opportunity to target the mass market with competitively priced essentials, tapping into India's vast and growing demand for daily consumables. In addition, RCPL has moved into value-added and niche categories by acquiring and partnering with established players. For example, the company picked up stakes in Lotus Chocolate Company, strengthening its presence in the confectionery and cocoa-based products segment, and forged a distribution arrangement with Socio Hajuri Beverages, adding regional soft drink expertise and capacity to its portfolio. RCPL's portfolio-building approach has been characterized by a mix of acquisitions, brand revivals, and new launches. This allows it to balance the risk of developing new products with the certainty of riding on established brand recognition. The company has also been experimenting with premium product lines, such as artisanal chocolate under Lotus and regional beverage variants, suggesting that it is not restricting itself to the mass market alone. At the same time, Reliance is using its retail and distribution muscle to rapidly push these products into both modern trade and general trade outlets, creating a dual-channel advantage. For instance, Campa Cola has been aggressively introduced not only through Reliance retail stores and JioMart but also through neighborhood kirana shops, signaling a conscious attempt to mirror and eventually rival the reach of incumbents like HUL and ITC. The portfolio, though still in a build-out phase, shows a deliberate attempt to cover the full consumption basket, from daily staples to indulgent products, and from beverages to household essentials. This breadth aligns with Reliance's broader ambition to become a one-stop FMCG player capable of addressing India's diverse consumption needs. By creating a blend of mass-market brands for scale and premium offerings for margin expansion, RCPL is gradually crafting a portfolio architecture that not only diversifies its revenue base but also enhances its ability to cross-leverage distribution, brand marketing, and procurement synergies across categories. Resource consolidation and capabilities. The transfer of FMCG brands to RCPL is not merely a structural reshuffling but a strategic act of consolidating Reliance's formidable resources into a focused platform. One of the company's most significant advantages lies in its distribution muscle. Reliance Retail already operates over 19,000 stores across India, giving RCPL an assured route to market that few FMCG entrants can replicate. Beyond physical retail, the integration with JioMart, Reliance's fast-growing e-commerce platform, provides a digital channel capable of reaching millions of households directly. Together, this dual distribution network creates an omni-channel presence that accelerates product visibility and adoption at scale. On the supply side, Reliance has invested heavily in backward integration and procurement capabilities, particularly in agri-commodities and staples. By leveraging its farm-to-fork initiatives, sourcing partnerships, and logistics infrastructure, the company can reduce dependence on external suppliers, exercise tighter control over quality, and optimize costs. This is particularly relevant for categories like staples, dairy, and edible oils under the Independence brand, where cost competitiveness and consistency are critical for winning consumer trust. In addition, Reliance's established relationships with millions of kirana stores through its merchant digitization efforts provide a ready-made wholesale network for RCPL's FMCG products, giving it reach that mirrors and even challenges the legacy distributor networks of HUL and ITC. Another critical capability stems from Reliance's financial strength and investment capacity. Unlike many FMCG startups that face capital constraints in scaling, RCPL can tap into Reliance Industries' balance sheet to fund acquisitions, marketing campaigns, and product innovation. This financial firepower has already been demonstrated in acquisitions such as Campa Cola, Lotus Chocolate, and stakes in Socio Hajuri beverages. Such inorganic expansion allows RCPL to rapidly assemble a diversified portfolio without waiting for organic brand-building cycles alone. Moreover, with Reliance's global partnerships and alliances, the company is well-positioned to bring in international expertise, technology, and supply chain best practices into its FMCG operations. Marketing and brand-building capabilities also stand to benefit from Reliance's ecosystem-driven synergies. With Jio's massive digital subscriber base exceeding 450 million users, RCPL gains unparalleled access to consumer data and marketing touchpoints. This data-driven insight can be deployed to craft targeted campaigns, tailor product launches, and create consumer engagement strategies at scale. The integration of digital, retail, and FMCG resources represents a unique capability unmatched in India's consumer goods sector, where traditional FMCG companies typically operate in silos. Overall, the consolidation of resources under RCPL transforms Reliance from being a retailer with private labels into an FMCG player with deep capabilities in distribution, procurement, finance, technology, and marketing. This positions the company to compete not just on price or distribution reach but on a broader platform of strategic advantages that can reshape industry dynamics over the next decade. Competitive dynamics. The transfer of FMCG brands to RCPL places Reliance in direct competition with some of the most entrenched players in India's consumer goods sector, including Hindustan Unilever, ITC, Nestle, Britannia, and Dabur. These companies have decades of brand equity, entrenched distribution systems that reach over 8 to 9 million outlets nationwide, and a wide portfolio of products that dominate categories ranging from soaps and detergents to packaged foods and beverages. Breaking into these categories requires not only strong distribution but also consistent investment in marketing, brand building, and consumer trust. Reliance's entry through RCPL therefore represents a significant disruption in an otherwise stable oligopoly of established FMCG giants. One of Reliance's biggest competitive advantages lies in its multi-channel distribution ecosystem, which combines Reliance Retail's modern trade dominance, JioMart's e-commerce scale, and its fast-expanding wholesale reach into Kirana stores. Unlike traditional FMCG rivals who rely heavily on third-party distributors, Reliance can exercise greater control over pricing, promotions, and placement, accelerating brand penetration. For example, Campa Cola's relaunch leveraged Reliance Retail's nationwide stores as anchor outlets while also pushing the product through general trade, ensuring visibility against Coke and Pepsi at both modern and traditional touchpoints. This direct-to-consumer strategy not only increases speed to market but also reduces Reliance's dependence on intermediaries, allowing it to compete more aggressively on price. At the same time, Reliance faces formidable challenges. FMCG is a low-margin, high-volume business where consumer loyalty is hard-won and easily lost. Incumbents like HUL spend over 5,000 crore rupees annually on advertising and promotion, creating significant barriers to entry for new players. While Reliance has deep pockets, it will need to match this sustained investment to build brand equity across multiple categories simultaneously. Moreover, consumers in India have long-standing relationships with trusted brands in staples, personal care, and packaged foods, meaning RCPL must differentiate itself through either superior value, innovative products, or emotional connect to break through entrenched habits. Another dynamic shaping the competition is pricing and affordability in the mass market. Reliance has historically adopted a strategy of aggressive pricing to capture market share, as seen in Jio's telecom disruption. In FMCG, however, the battle is more complex because of the fragmented rural market and the importance of micro-packaging, 1 rupee or 2 rupees SKUs, where incumbents like ITC and HUL have perfected their execution. For RCPL to succeed, it must not only leverage scale economies but also master rural distribution logistics and local consumer insights at a granular level. The stakes are high. India's FMCG market, valued at over $110 billion in 2024, is projected to grow at a double-digit pace, making it a lucrative but intensely contested battleground. In this landscape, Reliance's approach seems to blend aggressive acquisition with organic expansion, while competitors are responding by doubling down on innovation and strengthening their rural outreach. The competition is not limited to products but extends to control of retail shelves, consumer data, and digital engagement, areas where Reliance may have an edge due to its telecom and retail ecosystem. The evolution of this rivalry will determine whether RCPL emerges as a disruptive force capable of altering India's FMCG power structure or whether it will be forced to coexist within the stronghold of established incumbents. Growth pathways. RCPL's growth strategy is anchored in a multi-pronged approach that leverages Reliance's existing ecosystem while aggressively seeking to build independent FMCG scale. A key pathway lies in geographic expansion beyond Reliance's own stores. While the company has an assured customer base through over 19,000 Reliance retail outlets and the JioMart platform, long-term success in FMCG requires penetration into the broader general trade network that services over 12 million kirana stores across India. RCPL has already begun establishing its own distribution channels to place products like Campa Cola and Independence staples in neighborhood stores, ensuring visibility in the highly fragmented rural and semi-urban markets where over 40% of FMCG demand originates. Another avenue of growth is acquisition-led expansion. Reliance has demonstrated its willingness to acquire brands with heritage value or strong regional presence, such as Campa Cola, Lotus Chocolate, and Socio Hajuri beverages. This inorganic route allows RCPL to quickly diversify its portfolio and enter new categories without having to build from scratch. Industry observers expect Reliance to continue scouting for mid-sized regional FMCG brands in snacks, beverages, and household care that can be scaled nationally with Reliance's distribution power. Such acquisitions also help Reliance bypass the time-consuming process of consumer acceptance for new-to-market brands, as they already come with built-in loyalty in specific geographies. Product innovation and brand building represent another growth pathway. In a market where established players like HUL and ITC dominate with legacy products, Reliance is focusing on differentiated positioning through nostalgia-driven revivals, example Campa Cola, and value-for-money offerings, example Independence staples. Over time, RCPL is also expected to build premium segments in chocolate, health-based beverages, and packaged foods to capture higher-margin growth opportunities. This portfolio balancing of mass market for scale and premium for profitability aligns with global FMCG strategies and helps Reliance mitigate the risks of overdependence on commodity-driven categories. Digital integration is also central to RCPL's growth. With Reliance Jio's base of over 450 million subscribers, RCPL has a direct pipeline to engage with consumers through targeted marketing, promotions, and loyalty programs. By combining consumer data analytics with JioMart's e-commerce footprint, RCPL can launch products tailored to specific demographics and regions more effectively than competitors that lack such integrated digital platforms. This data-led personalization could emerge as a long-term differentiator in consumer engagement and product innovation. RCPL's growth is being shaped by Reliance's capital strength and ecosystem advantage. FMCG is a cash-intensive business in its initial years due to advertising, promotions, and distribution investments. With Reliance Industries backing, RCPL is insulated from short-term financial pressures that smaller entrants face. This allows it to take a long-term view, endure initial losses, and continue scaling until it achieves meaningful market share. Moreover, by integrating its FMCG ambitions with Reliance Retail's supply chain, JioMart's digital commerce, and Jio's consumer reach, RCPL has a unique ecosystem-based growth pathway that no other FMCG competitor in India currently possesses. Risks and challenges. While RCPL's entry into the FMCG sector has generated excitement, the path ahead is riddled with risks that could slow down or derail its ambitions. The most immediate challenge is breaking consumer inertia in brand preferences. FMCG markets in India are characterized by decades of entrenched loyalty toward incumbents like Hindustan Unilever, ITC, Nestle, and Britannia. For example, HUL's brands such as Surf Excel, Lux, and Dove dominate their categories with market shares ranging from 30–50%. Similarly, ITC commands a stronghold in packaged atta, Ashirvad, and biscuits, Sunfest, while Nestle has near-monopoly status in instant noodles with Maggi. For Reliance, Dislodging such entrenched players requires not only heavy investments in advertising and consumer engagement but also patience, since changing household buying behavior in staples and personal care products is a slow and uncertain process. Another critical risk lies in the cost structure of FMCG operations. Unlike telecom or retail, where Reliance previously used disruptive pricing to capture market share, FMCG economics are shaped by thin margins, high distribution costs, and constant input price volatility. Categories like edible oils, dairy, and packaged grains are highly price sensitive, leaving little room for differentiation. Global players like Nestle and local incumbents like ITC have years of experience managing these fluctuations with sophisticated procurement and hedging systems. RCPL will need to build similar capabilities quickly to avoid margin erosion. Moreover, competing in rural India, which accounts for nearly 36–38% of FMCG consumption, requires mastering micropackaging and last-mile logistics, areas where existing players have finely tuned strategies that Reliance is only beginning to develop. Regulatory and reputational risks also loom large. FMCG businesses operate under stringent food safety, labeling, and environmental regulations. Any quality lapses, such as contamination issues or misleading claims, can lead to brand damage that is costly to reverse. Established players like Nestle learned this during the 2015 Maggi crisis, when product recalls significantly dented market share for several years. For RCPL, which is still in the process of earning consumer trust, such incidents would be particularly damaging. Furthermore, as Reliance grows its FMCG footprint, it could attract regulatory scrutiny over competition practices, especially given its dominance in both retail and distribution. The dual role of being a retailer and a producer raises potential conflicts of interest, as smaller FMCG firms may allege unfair shelf space advantages for Reliance's own brands. Execution risk is equally significant. Reliance has often relied on aggressive capital deployment to enter new industries, but FMCG success depends less on upfront investment and more on sustained operational excellence over decades. Building enduring consumer brands requires consistency in product quality, cultural resonance in marketing, and the ability to adapt to rapidly shifting consumer preferences such as health consciousness, sustainability, and premiumization. Competitors like Dabur have thrived by aligning themselves with Ayurveda and wellness trends, while HUL has successfully premiumized personal care products to drive margins. RCPL will need to anticipate such shifts and avoid being trapped in a low-cost, commodity-driven positioning that limits profitability. Finally, there is the challenge of time horizons. Investors and analysts often expect quick results from Reliance's ambitious ventures, given its track record of disrupting industries like telecom with Jio. However, FMCG is a slower game. Even well-capitalized entrants often take years, if not decades, to build national brands with double-digit market shares. For RCPL, balancing the expectations of rapid scale-up with the patience required for brand building will be a delicate act. If growth fails to meet investor expectations, the company risks being perceived as overextended, which could affect future fundraising or valuation opportunities, especially if RCPL is spun off into a separately listed entity. Early signals and market response. The initial market response to Reliance Consumer Products Limited, RCPL, has been a mix of curiosity, cautious optimism, and competitive alertness. The most prominent signal came with the relaunch of Campa Cola in 2023, a move that immediately drew consumer attention due to its nostalgic appeal. Early sales figures suggested strong uptake in Reliance retail outlets, particularly in metros and Tier 1 cities, where the brand tapped into consumer memory and the novelty of its revival. However, outside Reliance's retail ecosystem, Campa Cola has faced challenges in securing shelf space and consumer mindshare against Coca-Cola and Pepsi, whose deep-rooted distribution and marketing budgets dominate the 40,000 crore rupees Indian soft drinks market. This illustrates the dual reality facing RCPL. While Reliance's ecosystem provides a strong launchpad, building sustainable traction beyond its captive channels requires far more investment in distribution and brand building. Similarly, the rollout of the Independence brand in staples and packaged foods has shown mixed signals. While competitively priced products such as rice, flour, and pulses have found steady acceptance in Reliance Smart and JioMart outlets, penetration in traditional Kirana stores remains patchy. Consumer surveys indicate that buyers often default to established brands like Aashirvaad, ITC, Fortune, Adani Wilmar, or regional favorites in these categories due to trust and familiarity. Nevertheless, RCPL's aggressive pricing has forced incumbents to monitor the space more closely and, in some cases, to tweak promotional strategies in markets where independence is being actively pushed. This suggests that Reliance's presence is beginning to exert a subtle influence on category-level dynamics, even if it has not yet captured dominant shares. The competitive landscape has also shown signs of defensive maneuvering. Reports in the business press suggest that HUL, ITC, and Britannia have stepped up rural distribution investments and enhanced marketing spends in select categories where Reliance has made inroads. Analysts point out that incumbents see Reliance as a credible challenger not because of current market share, still relatively modest in most FMCG categories, but because of its potential to scale rapidly given its financial muscle and retail distribution advantages. Brokerage reports in 2024 began factoring in RCPL as a potential disruptor in long-term sector forecasts, even though they cautioned that profitability would take time to materialize. From a consumer standpoint, brand recall for RCPL's portfolio remains in the building phase. Market research indicates that while Campa Cola enjoys strong nostalgic recall, newer brands like Independence are still associated more with Reliance Retail than as standalone FMCG labels. This suggests that RCPL's brand equity is still tethered to the Reliance parent brand, which is both a strength and a limitation. It enables rapid entry but may also hinder the perception of RCPL as a pure FMCG company in the long run. Analysts argue that creating independent brand identities that resonate beyond Reliance's distribution ecosystem will be critical for sustained success. Overall, the early signals point to a gradual but deliberate market entry rather than an overnight disruption. Reliance has succeeded in creating competitive buzz and consumer curiosity, but the road to parity with established FMCG giants remains long. The market response underscores both the promise and the challenges of Reliance's foray. Incumbents are on alert, consumers are experimenting, but converting trials into long-term loyalty will require consistent investment, category leadership, and patient execution. Implications for the industry. Reliance's formal entry into the FMCG sector through RCPL has significant implications for the broader industry. For decades, the Indian FMCG landscape has been dominated by a handful of large players such as Hindustan Unilever, ITC, Nestle, Britannia, and Dabur, each with entrenched distribution networks and strong consumer brands. The arrival of Reliance, India's largest retailer with unmatched financial strength and digital reach, introduces a new dimension of competition that incumbents cannot afford to ignore. Analysts have noted that Reliance's ability to bundle retail dominance, e-commerce platforms, telecom subscriber base, and FMCG brands creates an ecosystem advantage that no other player in the market currently possesses. This may push the industry toward more integrated, cross-channel strategies in the years ahead. One of the immediate implications is increased pricing pressure in mass-market categories such as staples, edible oils, and packaged foods. Reliance has historically used aggressive pricing to capture market share, as seen in its Jio Telecom disruption. While FMCG economics differ, Reliance's scale and procurement capabilities could allow it to sustain thin margins in essentials, forcing incumbents to recalibrate their pricing or promotional strategies to defend market share. Already, industry reports in 2024 suggested that companies like ITC and Adani Wilmar were monitoring price competitiveness more closely in regions where RCPL's Independence brand had gained traction. If this trend intensifies, the FMCG industry could enter a phase of margin compression, especially in commodity-linked categories. The competitive dynamics are also likely to accelerate consolidation and acquisitions. Reliance's appetite for acquiring heritage and regional brands, such as Campa Cola, Lotus Chocolate, and Sosyo Hajuri beverages, signals that smaller family-run FMCG firms with localized strength may become acquisition targets not only for Reliance but also for incumbents seeking to defend their turf. This could reshape the industry structure, reducing fragmentation and creating a sharper divide between large-scale national players and niche premium brands. The competitive heat may also drive incumbents to strengthen innovation pipelines, diversify into adjacent categories, or increase investments in rural distribution and digital marketing. Another implication lies in the digitization of consumer engagement and distribution. With Jio's subscriber base exceeding 450 million and JioMart's expanding e-commerce footprint, Reliance has the capacity to collect granular consumer data and deliver targeted marketing campaigns at scale. This is likely to raise the bar for digital integration in FMCG, forcing traditional players to move beyond conventional television-led advertising and embrace omni-channel consumer engagement. For the industry, this could accelerate the shift toward data-driven FMCG marketing, blurring the lines between retail, telecom, and consumer goods. Finally, Reliance's entry raises important questions about fair competition and regulatory oversight. Given its dual role as both a retailer and a producer, concerns have been voiced about preferential shelf placement for RCPL's brands within Reliance retail outlets. Smaller FMCG companies may find it harder to secure visibility if Reliance prioritizes its own products. This could prompt regulatory bodies like the Competition Commission of India, CCI, to pay closer attention to retail FMCG integration models. If regulatory scrutiny intensifies, it could reshape norms around channel fairness and pricing transparency across the industry. In essence, RCPL's emergence does not merely add another competitor to the FMCG field, it alters the competitive logic of the industry. By combining scale, capital, and ecosystem leverage, Reliance is compelling incumbents to rethink strategies that have worked for decades. Whether this leads to sustained disruption, strategic partnerships, or new regulatory frameworks, the Indian FMCG sector is unlikely to remain the same in the wake of Reliance's growing ambitions. Long-term outlook: the transfer of FMCG brands to RCPL represented more than a corporate restructuring. It was a signal of Reliance's intent to dominate the consumer goods space with the same aggression it had brought to retail, telecom, and digital. By separating the consumer products entity, Reliance created a platform capable of scaling independently, attracting investors, and building long-term value. The road ahead, however, would test RCPL's ability to translate resources into enduring brand equity. Success would depend on careful prioritization of product lines, consistent investment in consumer trust, and the ability to balance heritage with innovation. If executed well, RCPL could emerge as a defining force in India's FMCG landscape, reshaping competition and consumer behavior for years to come.
Dr. KBS Kumar is an award-winning management author and educator with over 100 published case studies across business domains and more than 20 international accolades in case writing. A seasoned trainer and mentor, he has guided corporate leaders, academics, and students in mastering case writing and case-based learning, blending academic rigor with practical insights. Through the case verse, Dr. Kumar transforms real-world business events into engaging case studies, powerful resources for classrooms, corporate training, managerial development, and strategic thinking. Passionate about nurturing critical and analytical skills, his work bridges theory and practice, offering timeless lessons for navigating today's complex business world.